Advance and be recognized, everyone, and welcome to the Sitrep podcast, your forward operations space for all things military and historical wargaming. I am your host, Oriskany Jim, and today we're taking a look at a conflict that, frankly, doesn't get nearly enough attention on this channel, World War I, specifically the Battle of Belleau Wood. Our game system today is Tactical Combat in 15mm, presented by Mark Ritchie. Now, this is part of an ongoing series that Mark and I are running this year, sort of a greatest hits of the U.S. Marine Corps to commemorate the Corps' upcoming 250th birthday later this year. Now, as far as the importance the Marine Corps holds for the Battle of Belleau Wood, let's just say that it's up there with places like Iwo Jima, the hulls of Montezuma, and the shores of Tripoli. If you know, you know. Belleau Wood takes place in France in June of 1918. Now, there's a lot to go over here, so let me try and summarize. Let's just start off by saying that in early 1918, the Germans unleash a series of very powerful counterattacks all along the Western Front. This starts in March 21st with the St. Michael's Offensive along the Somme, putting a deep dent in British lines near Amiens. On April 9th, the Germans follow up further north in Flanders with the Georgette Offensive and the Battle of Lys. These are predominantly British sectors of the line, but when the French start sending in reinforcements, the Germans open up a third offensive to draw these reinforcements away. This is the Blücher offensive, striking south near the Marne River toward Paris on May 27th. This was supposed to be a diversionary attack, but when two French divisions crumble away before the German advance, the road to Paris suddenly finds itself under considerable threat. The German 197th and 237th Divisions are still advancing, and when the French Prime Minister asks the commander of his 6th Army what remains between the Germans and Paris, the answer he gets is nothing but dust. New American divisions are sent in to help seal the breach. First up is the 3rd U.S. Infantry Division at a town called Thierry, hopefully I'm coming close to saying that right, and next up is the 2nd U.S. Infantry or Indian Head Division, which isn't just Army troops at this time. 2nd U.S. Infantry includes the 4th Marine Brigade, or more specifically, the 5th and 6th Marine Regiments. The 4th Marine Brigade first goes up against the Germans in Belleau Wood on the 6th of June, 1918, and when they meet retreating French troops who advise them to do the same, Marine Captain Lloyd Williams famously cracks, "Retreat, hell, we just got here." Bravado aside, this fight was going to be a ferocious one. At one point, First Sergeant Dan Daly with the 6th Marines, winner of not one but 2 Congressional Medals of Honor, supposedly rallied his troops with the famous line, "Come on, you sons of bitches, do you want to live forever?" Now, whether or not it was him who actually said this or a gunnery sergeant with the 5th Marines is up for some debate. Other aspects of this battle's legendary status I'll go into later, but suffice it to say, this was a big one. Mark's game has elements of 3rd Battalion 5th Marines on the attack, commanded by myself and my friend Tom. Meanwhile, the Germans are on defense. They've got elements of the 460th Regiment, 237th Division, and they're actually being played by 2 buddies, both of them named John, actually. Will our Devil Dogs once again pass into the halls of Marine Corps legend? Let's head over to the footage and find out. Okay, here is our table for today. The board measures 4 feet by 4 feet. We're playing in 15mm. The Marines will be coming in from the bottom of your screen and pushing toward the Germans. That's, again, the 460th Regiment of the 237th Division along the top of your screen. In general, we're looking southwest into the northeast. Remember, this is June 6th, so this is the opening part of the Battle of Belleau Wood. Other games and other scenarios, the actual direction of the board will change because the battle lines do pivot as the Marines push deeper into Belleau Wood. But this is our setup for today's game. Here are the Marine forces lined up and ready to go. We're starting off with a company command group, followed by some snipers, some corpsmen, some NCOs. The guys with blue dots are carrying rifle grenades, and those LMGs, unfortunately for me, are the awful French-supplied Shawshat machine rifles. Truly atrocious weapons. Unfortunately, I'm stuck with them. And other than that, a whole lot of Marine Corps riflemen. Everything in my company is more or less repeated in Tom's company you see there to the right. I should also note that our force contains a fair amount of shotguns, which of course the Germans protested as being unfair to bring to the battlefield. Pretty rich stuff coming from the people who introduced poison gas and flamethrowers to the battlefield, but what are you going to do? Taking a look at some of the German positions here, we see some forward medium machine gun teams, some riflemen. Back in that little square dugout, we have an artillery spotting team, some reserve riflemen in this communication trench back here, another MG-08 medium machine gun team. These are the infamous Maxims that made World War I, you know, such a horrible place. Again, war Maxims. Germans were pretty well dug in. We have to cross this whole field and crack both lines of German trenches by the end of turn 15. Okay, so here we are starting our offensive. Notice the Marines are in those infamous wheat fields that they had to kind of start off. I know the battle is called Belleau Wood. You expect there to be a really thick forest. It would get to that in later days and weeks, but at first the Marines had to cross those awful bloody wheat fields that Mark has represented here on his table. Notice we're pretty spread out because Mark's game does include area effect rules for medium machine guns, and again, the Germans do have quite a few of those. So my plan was to sort of concentrate as much as we could against one section of the German trench line over here on our left-hand side, but if we mash our guys together too close, we're just going to be taking way too many casualties, and also it's not really realistic. This is World War I. We really shouldn't be marching forward shoulder to shoulder. So we are now pushing through the wheat fields. We have to cross a lot of killing ground before we actually get to those trenches. Meanwhile, we're going to be trying to suppress some of those German medium machine gun positions with snipers, our own machine guns, and maybe even some artillery. So Tom is in charge of our off-board artillery, and right now we're resolving where our initial rounds have actually hit. Of course, you pick an aiming point, but then you have to resolve whether or not the rounds drift. And long story short, take your first shot. Looks like we hit one German machine gun pit and missed another. Okay, the Germans have taken their first fire, and looks like I've taken some light wounds. Tom, unfortunately, has taken some KIAs. But now it's time for some payback, and me oh my, would you look at the time? It's sniper o'clock. I've got two sniper teams ready to go to suppress those German machine guns. I do have to clear that little hill that you probably can't see there. I do have to pay a penalty for shooting through that light tree cover. Okay, but there is a +1 leader there that he's in the command diameter for. So I get a +1 on that. We do all the math. Looks like I'm going to need 7s or less to hit on D20s. And both my snipers miss. Okay, I have a medium machine gun with a +3 NCO. That's my motivating first sergeant there. We figure out the math. Once again, I need 7s after all my modifiers. And we all miss again. Gee whiz. Okay, my machine guns have missed despite their +3 leader, and my snipers have missed despite being snipers. Now it's down to my hardcore Marine Corps riflemen, and I'm firing off my first batch. Those that are within a certain radius of a good NCO need 4s to hit. Okay, that was a 10, not a 1, so I'm not trying to cheat. So I got 3 hits so far. Moving over to the second group, they have different leaders over there, and they're a little bit further away, and they have to pay for extra cover. Here I need only 2s to hit, so 10% on a D20. But it looks like I got 3 more hits, so I'm up to 6 hits so far. I've got one more element, these bad guys here, that I'm going to try and fire. Okay, that's nothing so far. These guys, again, are at 2s to hit. Okay, there's 1, there's 2 more. I'm at 8 so far. You see how, like, each dice is a guy, so I'm firing off like a whole company. But, yeah, I wind up with 8 hits. Okay, then we resolve the wound penalties. There are light wounds in this game, serious wounds, and kills, and they do accumulate. So we see the effects of some artillery there, and then I have shot up that first machine gun team. However, that machine gun itself is still intact, and looks like he's going to try and rush forward with those riflemen and re-crew that Maxim machine gun. Movement phase on turn 2, and how I'm going to handle this is my squads who fired and moved last turn are going to double move this turn and reverse that for the squads who double moved last turn. This way I hope to keep up an overall good pace of advance while maintaining suppression on German defensive fire coming out of those trenches. Sure enough, John rushed forward with some more Germans to recrew that machine gun, but I had some surprises waiting for him, some units on Overwatch. Their orders are, watch that machine gun, and if any jokers run towards it, you know what to do. So first I fired with my machine gun with a +3 leader. He needed a 7 to hit. I wound up with only 1 hit so far, that's a 3. Then I had 2 snipers with +1 leaders. They also wind up with a 7 to hit. Okay, I scored 1 hit there. And then I had 2 guys with rifle grenades. And, okay, they both missed. So I only scored 2 hits on the guys trying to recrew that Maxim. And then we do the damage roll, and 20, the worst possible roll in the game. Apparently I healed him. I shot a bouquet of roses at him, and 13 doesn't do anything either, so that's that. Okay, so once again, how I'm going to maintain my pace of advance is for all my squads that took a double move last turn, they're going to now move once, take a knee, and open fire, covering the other squads who are now taking a double move. So with kind of a leapfrog action and some fire maneuver, we're going to maintain a good advance and move up this ridge toward those German positions. And sure enough, this time we have scored more hits on those German machine gunners, and this time made the equipment destruction check, knocked out that actual gun physically. So long story short, take your second shot, that Maxim position is silenced for good. Meanwhile, one of my Marines, a light machine gunner, now in this scenario that means those god-awful Shawshat French-made machine rifles, has rolled a natural 20, a critical failure, the worst roll to hit. So this dice was a 20, forgive me as I fix that for the camera. So in this scenario, we have a special rule where if they roll a 20 on the Shawshat, and then you roll a 6, that indicates on the equipment failure check that that Shawshat has been irreparably fouled. So that Marine is tossing aside that Shawshat, unslinging his Springfield, and getting back to work. We're at the end of turn 4, and Germans are calling in onboard mortars and offboard howitzers, landing among my Marines. You see those smoke clouds. Not so happy about that. But bear in mind, we also have Tom's company over here on the right. I'm only playing half the Marines, remember. And his job is to, as he advances, sidestep to the left more and more so that we can eventually apply all of our firepower against just a section of the German trenches. That's the general idea, but for now, this German artillery is getting on my nerves. Okay, we are getting close. Now what those pencils are, it kind of helps me keep track of which squads are going to be using the fire and movement rule and which ones are going to be taking that double movement. Again, that leapfrogging fire and maneuver tactic I've been using while under overwatch from my machine guns, my snipers, and my rifle grenades. We're getting close to make that final charge into the first German trenches and hopefully winning this game. Meanwhile, we've got Tom's company. You can see them edging in more and more from the right. It's good. I mean, that's kind of what he's supposed to be doing. The problem is, at the moment, I'm in a bit of a crossfire. I'm taking damage from the front and also from the right. The good news is John is rolling horrible on his damage dice. A lot of bullets are glancing off of helmets, so happy about that.
How bad? I don't know yet. Thanks! I'm alright. I'm alright. Am I alright? Yeah. Yeah, you feel alright? Yeah, quit looking at me like that.
Meanwhile, looks like Tom has destroyed another German Maxim machine gun position, so outstanding work there. Okay, all my Marines have now taken their shots. I can remove those pencils. Again, that was how I was tracking who had paused to fire and who was taking a double move. That green dice and yellow dice, those were tracking German artillery impacts. So you see all those new red tags, those are my new casualties, including a KIA. Sorry to say, there he goes. But the good news is the front of the German trench is pretty much empty. We've kept up a pretty good fire as we've advanced. So now we're looking pretty much just at a German observer team, some reserve infantry. Long story short, take your third shot. That front German trench line is ready for an assault. Meanwhile, what I'm also doing is collapsing my two platoons into one platoon, more or less. So that first platoon has slowed down just a little bit in order to put out some more fire into the German trench, while that second platoon took a double move, no fire, and slid in behind my first platoon, more or less combining them into one big assault platoon. Because the last thing I want to do is assault that German trench in waves. I have to have all my Marines pour into that trench all at once. This minimizes the amount of time I'm in that killing ground. Meanwhile, of course, we have Tom's company continuing to close in from the right. The idea eventually is to hit that trench with two full companies all at once. Okay, moment of truth. The first Marines are now in the trench, and per tradition, I guess, the very first Marine in the trench did catch a bullet and was KIA from some of this reserve German infantry coming up from that communication trench back there. Meanwhile, here is my medium machine gun team, my M1917. He is now firing across the table to suppress some of these German machine gun positions that are still hindering Tom's advance across that open field. Again, what I'm doing is I'm keeping my +3 leader back with my heaviest weapon. That way I think I get the most out of that +3 bonus. I've also got sniper teams with rifle grenades, another sniper team with rifle grenades. This is how I've been covering my advance over all that open ground. And again, we're hoping Tom can sort of join me here as we launch almost a pincer on the German trench. Kicking off turn 7, we start off with medic rolls, and check out these sugar sweet rolls I get here. My Navy corpsmen are on point. That 1 and the 2 mean that 2 of my serious wounds are now back in the fight 100%. 2 Navy guys you never make fun of in the Marine Corps, the chaplain and the corpsman. Meanwhile, that 2-stage attack I keep talking about is now a 3-stage attack. You see my double move squads in the back, my single move squads are in the middle. Meanwhile, my forward squad, notice the react counter. They're not moving at all. They are engaged with German riflemen in a shootout. It is now a firefight inside the German trench system. Meanwhile, Tom's company continues their advance. Now remember, his overall part in the plan was to continue to echelon further and further off to the left, but he has to detach some squads off to the right because we can't ignore those German machine gun positions out there. Yeah, one thing about Mark's game, when you're on the attack, you cannot waste time. You've got to figure out some kind of tactics, cover fire, terrain, raw speed. You've got to cross that killing ground and get to grips with your opponent as fast as you can. Now into turn 8, and it doesn't look like we're doing too bad. We've got what looks like at least 2 Marine squads into the forward German trench line. Meanwhile, Tom's company is continuing to tie in on our right. They had a long road to hoe there. They had to come across a lot of open ground with a very open right flank. But he has pulled it off, and we are converging now at the decisive point of impact. Doesn't look like the Germans are going to be able to stop us. They've got an observer team left, a few officers back there, and looks like they're bringing in some reserve infantry down that communication trench, but that's about it. Meanwhile, some of Tom's detached squads are reaching the German trench lines way over on the right wing. Not part of the original plan, but he did have to do this in order to silence these German machine guns eating into his right flank. Meanwhile, back on my side of the battlefield, we are now beyond the first belt of German trenches. We have engaged and destroyed that German observer team, so no more German off-board artillery coming in on us. Very happy about that. I was about sick of that action. And again, here comes Tom closing in on my right wing. Meanwhile, way off on the eastern extremity of the table, we're going to have some good old-fashioned melee combat because the Germans are countercharging the Marines that are now entering their trenches. And in Mark's game, it's pretty simple. Once figures are within, I think it's 3 centimeters, they're more or less automatically locked into melee combat. His system does have rules for certain guys getting to attack first based on the reach and length of their weapons, but here everyone's pretty much carrying, a bayonet on the end of a rifle or an E-tool, and all the engaged figures roll a dice, and it's pretty quick. Meanwhile, some more of Tom's Marines have overrun that German machine gun. We own that German machine gun now. And my Marines continue to advance here toward that second communication trench. That's what's going to give us the game. We have to crack that back German trench line. So we're getting close. Alright, I am now executing my movement, and we get a little bit of a faster movement rate through the trench line. It's almost like a road, so you see where I have to kind of follow the trench line there. And we are now in bayonet distance against some of these German troops in the trench line. So again, some of my guys aren't using the trenches. They'll be taking a shorter movement, but the guys who are following the trenches are going to be taking the longer movement. And I've got my corpsmen right there to handle the casualties. Oh man, this is going to be a hell of a dust up here. And oh, check out those guys at the upper right corner of your screen. Those are Tom's Marines that have arrived right on time. The pincer has finally snapped shut at the point of a bayonet.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Meanwhile, over here on the eastern side of the table, Tom's 3 Marines are going to easily win this little mashup because, again, in this era, everyone's carrying the same melee weapons, and 3 guys with bayonets and E-tools will beat 1 guy with a bayonet and an E-tool. There's one more casualty we're going to go ahead and clean up. And then here we are at the main event that's pretty much going to determine the game. So Tom's guys have already resolved their part of the bayonet battle. Meanwhile, I've got 7 of my Marines in contact. John has made his roll. He gets a +2 because he's got a good commander in there with him, motivating his men in this desperate melee combat. I was just checking all my bases. I don't have any leaders here, but I do have 7 Marines. So I do outnumber him more than 2 to 1. So he's done his damage, but it's simultaneous, so I still get to roll all 7 of my dice. I'm looking for 14s or below. I have scored 4 hits. There's only 3 Germans there. That ends the German resistance in the communication trench. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all the casualties, both his and mine. And there you have it, folks. The remaining Marines are going to pour into the communication trench, complete with corpsman support, no less. And that's it. The second German trench line has fallen. I think it's turn 11. We had 15 turns, so we've accomplished the objective with plenty of time. And that concludes Mark's recreation of part of the opening day of Belleau Wood. Definitely a bloody one. I took almost 50% casualties going in, but Belleau Wood is a legendary battle in Marine Corps history for a reason. Yet with solid fire and maneuver tactics, complete with a good overwatch element, and converging echelon of advance, great support and teamwork from Tom on that, by the way. And of course, great play from our opponents, John and John. And another great scenario by our friend, Mark Ritchie. And there we are, folks. Tom and I took plenty of losses going in, but in the end, we got there. We cracked the German trenches well before the deadline, marking down this game as a Marine Corps victory. Of course, June 6th was only the beginning. The Battle of Belleau Wood was going to drag on through pretty much the rest of June, with the heaviest fighting, in fact, not even starting until June 10th. By the time the smoke had cleared and the dust had settled, 10 Medals of Honor had been awarded to the Marines and the Navy Corpsmen right alongside them, and the Battle of Belleau Wood was going to be enshrined in the halls of Marine Corps legend forever. How much legend? Well, for starters, the French government renamed Belleau Wood Marine Wood. They awarded the entire 4th Brigade the Croix de Guerre with Palm. Yes, that's the entire brigade got that medal. They also awarded the 4th Brigade the French ferocious, which 5th and 6th Marine Regiments wear proudly to this very day. But perhaps the biggest award came from the Germans, of all people, who were a little unsettled at the unhinged ferocity of the Marines facing them. They said the Marines fought like the hounds of hell or the devil's dogs, Teufelhunden as they would say. This led to the nickname Devil Dogs, which the Marines, again, wear proudly to this very day. And that's where we're going to leave it for now, folks. Thanks very much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Please remember to hit that notification bell. Also, please consider joining the Sitrep Podcast Discord. There's an auto-accept invitation link to our Discord in the description of this video. Join our community, see what everybody's up to, and best of all, show us what's happening on your hobby table. But for now, this is Oriskany Jim with the Sitrep Podcast. We are rounds complete for another episode. And as always, Tango Mike for watching.